Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. This channel is dedicated to finding out whether I actually know everything or not. Make sure you like and subscribe, and definitely make sure you ask questions in the comments below or at my email address, which I will say at the end of the video, so pay attention, keep watching. Without further ado, let's find out what the question of the day is. Drumroll, please. Okay, what is the Fermi Paradox and why is it important? All right. I think I got this. At least I know what the Fermi Paradox is. The why it's important part, that might be a little bit more of a stretch, but we will find out. So the Fermi Paradox was thought up by Enrico Fermi of the Fermi radio, fame, whatever. Anyway, the Italian scientist in the, I don't know exactly when he thought of it, but it would have been in the early to mid 20th century, probably in the, say 30s or 40s or something like that. And the basic idea is that he felt like, okay, so here we have civilization, right? We have Earth, we have billions of years that little microscopic creatures were roaming around, and then they became combined creatures, and then they grew into more and more complex things, and then we ended up with a complicated civilization that was exploding technologically. And his thought was, if this is not impossible, right? Even if there's a 0.00001% chance that a planet would develop life and technological life, or even more zeros than that, that any planet that developed that life should have within a few 100,000 years or millions of years or something like that taken over at least the galaxy, if not the universe. So his paradox was, if life can exist, which it can because we exist here, why is it not everywhere? That was the paradox. So the importance of that theory is that it's a kind of a weird thing that we're in a universe all by ourselves, right? Why are there not many, many other people out there or many other things, whatever they are, out there in the universe that had a head start on us and that have taken over the universe by now? So what's going on with that? There are, I can think of a few different solutions to this paradox, or, potential solutions at least. And let's see. So I think one of them is the Great Filter. And that idea is that either prior to right now in humanity or the Earth's ecosystem, there was some sort of filter in which almost, like really a lot of zeros, almost no entity could get past that filter. No life form could get past that filter. So one of those might simply be multicellular animals. According to the best research, essentially one cell ate another cell sometime way back billions of years ago, and that event probably only happened once. And what that did was it allowed the bigger cell to protect the smaller cell, and the smaller cell became the RNA, the power generating plant for the bigger cell. And that allowed multicellular life to begin because it got over what's called a barrier, energy barrier, where single-celled organisms could not produce enough energy for themselves to become multicellular. And this event, which seems incredibly weird, right? That it'd be like you eating a steak and suddenly the steak came to life in your body and became a little mini cow in there, and the cow was like moo, and you ate some grass and the cow made energy for you. It would be kind of along those lines. It's really bizarre that this happened, but it clearly did because of the multiple different kinds of DNA and RNA and all sorts of other things that we have within our cells that show that this did happen. I think the best evidence is that it only happened one time in all of evolutionary history, which is pretty impressive. But anyway, that could be a great filter, that maybe no other planet, maybe there's tons and tons of unicellular life in the universe, right, floating around out there, and like billions of planets have this unicellular life, but nobody else besides us managed to jump from one-celled organisms to multicellular organisms. Because once you do that, then the sky's the limit, right? It was like, that's what happens, this huge explosion of different kinds of weird animals, including us. The other half of the Great Filter argument is that the Great Filter happens after this. So other creatures, things, entities have reached our level of civilization before, where they have weapons that can destroy the entire planet, basically. And unfortunately, the Great Filter happens after us, and that means that we are going to destroy ourselves, right? That's the thing that stops it. Everybody gets to a point where they have some sort of technology, nuclear power or something like that, where they can destroy themselves and each other and everything, and that's when they do it. Or they just wipe out the climate and they destroy their own civilizations by climate change. Of course, both of those are very, very much more scary than that the Great Filter's on the far end, right? If the Great Filter happened like, 3 or 4 billion years ago, no biggie, right? We got no problems with that because we've already jumped over it a long time ago. If the Great Filter happens after this, and that we can't go past this technology without blowing ourselves up or destroying our climate, then we're pretty well screwed, and that's an unfortunate thing. So that's the more downside end of the Great Filter. Another theory is that we are on the front edge of possible life forms. So this one goes to the fact that the universe is about 13.5 billion years old or so, and that it takes a certain amount of times for simple stars to form and explode and create heavier elements, and therefore another round of stars can form and galaxies can form and so forth and so on. And that maybe we are on the very, very front edge of complex life being able to occur. That seems kind of unusual. Like, it seems a little odd that that would be the case for us, because one of the ideas, that we go by in our scientific endeavors is that we are nothing special, right? We're just kind of a random observer. We are middle of the road, so we should be middle of the road in terms of like life forming and becoming complex and so forth. So there should have been civilizations that had millions of years beyond what we have, and that they would have taken over by now, right? Because if we had another million years of human evolution, we probably wouldn't look like people anymore, but we would most likely have taken over the universe, assuming that the Great Filter didn't happen and we didn't all kill ourselves. But anyway, it is possible that we just happen to be at the front leading edge of this, and there's very few other civilizations that have formed yet, and if they have formed, they're really, really far away, and so we can't tell yet that they have formed. If that's the case, we have first mover advantage, and we are like awesome as long as we don't destroy ourselves first. Another theory that's rather interesting that, and I'm going to butcher this poor guy's name, I'm sorry. I apologize to him. His name is Liu Xizhan, I think, and he's a Chinese author, and he's written a trilogy of books. Let's see if I can remember the names. The Three-Body Problem, The Dark Forest, and I think Death's End? I think that's what it is, and Death's End is the last one. But anyway, the middle one, The Dark Forest, is his theory, and I don't know if it's based on anybody else, but it's a really intriguing theory, that the universe is full of other life forms, but nobody knows where everybody else is, and they're all hiding from each other because everyone is so terrified that they're going to get destroyed by these other civilizations that might have the jump on them, that everyone's just like, shh, be quiet. And humanity, as we were broadcasting radio waves out into the universe and so forth, is acting like a complete idiot and making our presence known, and that once we get to the point where we realize what's going on, we're all going to quiet down too, and so everything will become much quieter and we'll be quiet too. It's kind of an interesting theory. It's a rather terrifying theory. It just means that the entire universe is full of predators, and it's like there's sharks circling out there, but they can't quite find us unless we broadcast our position. In which case, things like SETI and so forth should probably shut up, because we should probably be quiet. But anyway, it's a guy's idea, and it's a rather interesting idea, but it's I find it a rather intriguing thing that that's a possibility. Anyway, so there's some ideas that I have about the Fermi Paradox, and let me go check real quick and find out what the official line is, and then I will get back to you and we'll talk about anything that I might have gotten wrong or right, and who knows, we'll see how it goes. I'll be back. Alrighty, so yes indeed, I was correct. Yay! Alright. It was indeed invented by Enrico Fermi, and it was actually in the summer of 1950 when he was talking with fellow physicist Edward Teller, Herbert York, and Emil Konopinski. Sorry if I mispronounced any of those names. But anyway, so he was talking to those folks, and they had a discussion, and he said, hey, there's billions of stars. There should be a whole lot of habitable worlds. There should be some percentage of those worlds that become civilized and have developed technology and then develop interstellar travel. And even if they go incredibly slowly, like, just a few kilometers per second over millions of years, they should take over the universe. Another potentially interesting idea would be like human beings, for example, with our technology today, if we could create self-replicating robots that could go and dig up like asteroids or something, right? And they could create a new robot out of that, flying robot, and create fuel and everything, none of which is very difficult given the technology that we have now. that those could, let's say you sent, a whole bunch out to the edge of this solar system. By the law of exponentials, right? If you sent out 100 to our solar system and then they sent out 100 each, that's, and then they sent out 100 each, it would take millions of years, but eventually those robots would take over everything. The whole entire galaxy, at the very least, would be full of these robots. So where are those? Even if other creatures couldn't figure out how to move a living form from one place to another because the timescales are so vast, where in the world are the robots that they should have sent out? There should be something out there, some evidence of other life. So it is a really intriguing paradox, and it's except for the one about the great filter at the back end, which actually even that is a little bit sobering, because that means that we have a huge responsibility. If we are the only complicated life form in the universe, wow, we better not kill ourselves. We better make sure that we do something right and we hang around and we, progress our civilization. It's something where you see like Elon Musk and the Mars Society and other people talking about getting us off this planet, and it's a really important idea. Like, people may say, like, oh, this is just stupid, we should fix the Earth. We should, but the thing is, like, even if we do an amazing job and take care of everything, eventually some big old asteroid is going to come in and smash the Earth. And honestly, even if nothing happens, eventually the sun is going to go rogue, and it's going to eventually in a few billion years swallow the Earth. So we have to leave in order to have any chance of survival in the really long term. Human beings have to get off the planet, so we might as well start now, because you never know when the extinction event is going to happen. So yeah, a little bit sobering. The Fermi Paradox is a very sobering thing to think about, because either we're the only ones around because we passed through a filter that was incredibly narrow earlier, and we're responsible for making sure complicated life succeeds in the universe, or the great filter is going to happen soon, like with our level of technology, and we're going to blow ourselves up or destroy our climate and wreck everything, and that sucks. Or the universe might be full of other creatures out there just waiting for us to stick our heads up so that they can eat us. So it's a pretty scary thing to think about, but also pretty neat. It's kind of mind-bending to think about, the law of exponentials and the law of huge numbers of planets and the law of time, right? Even at the incredibly slow crawl that we can manage these days, in a few million years, things can get a lot of different places. If you just give it enough time, things can get to other places. So anyway, rather interesting idea and a really cool thing to think about, and a little bit sobering. I hope you like this answer. Make sure, if you do, that you like and subscribe, and make sure absolutely that you ask questions in the comments or at DrKnowItAllKnows@gmail.com. My wife goes through and finds interesting questions for me to answer, and she gives them to me here, and I off the cuff answer them, and we see how I do. Until next time, thanks so much. Bye-bye.